Hello and welcome to BT Media's In Conversation With series. I'm delighted to welcome today Lou Kiwanuka, founder of the Shaper Group, vice chair of ESSA, chair of the EIA, part of the EventX 100 and OpsNest founder, and probably lots of other things. So it's safe to say that you're quite busy at the moment. And events is obviously a passion of yours. Wide question, what drives your passion for events? And I guess specifically the sort of operational part of it.
So I love change.
Okay.
I love change, and I think actually this industry is perfect for me because we put things up, we take things down, we build something else. So it's a constantly evolving beast, and therefore you can take one iteration, make some small adaptations, and see the results of the changes and the tweaks and the adjustments that you make along the way. But that's not just in terms of what you put out there, it's in terms of your relationships as well. So, you know, coming into this industry, you get to meet people, you build on those relationships. A different event will bring a different mix into the equation. That relationship changes, adjusts, you know, formulates. So I feel utterly lucky that 25 odd years into the mix, those 25 years have only ever been an increase on the first year.
Right.
You know, whether that's knowledge, skills, relationships, change. Yeah.
I mean, you're still learning.
What job provides that?
Well, what job provides that? Absolutely. Like diversity, right? Within the role. And obviously, as part of the Event Shaper Group, you obviously work on lots of events, right? So not just the one. Can you, I know you've probably done this many times, but it'd be good to sort of bring to life how that came about and what it does and who for.
Sure. I don't really know where to start on that one. I think going back to what I just said, you know, it started in 1996 when I got a temp job at Blenheim, and then everything that's happened thereafter has led to the Shaper Group being a thing. So Event Shaper itself, we started about 6 years ago off the back of EventShare, which was a business that I jointly owned with Stevie Charlton, and we were an outsourced operational resource for organisers of events, whether that's you know, one-off shows with entrepreneurial owners who are market specific, want to run an event in the market that they know and just don't know how to do it, to the likes of Clarion, where there might be a technical show where they require an expertise that we have, and maybe, you know, or it doesn't fit into their existing calendar, or somebody goes on maternity leave, and we plug that gap and do what an in-house ops team does, but externally.
Right. And obviously you have a core staff, but obviously then you branch out and utilize the freelance community, right?
Yeah, we've always been more core, which, to be honest, has I mean, it swings and roundabouts. We've fundamentally believed that we need to invest in people. You can't just stick an ops manager onto something and expect everything to be perfect. And when you freelance, if you use freelance resource, sometimes the way that you do things can't be carried on. So rightly or wrongly, we have focused quite a lot on bringing in and raising up from school leaver, uni, graduate onwards. To be honest, that hasn't always stood us in good stead. It's hard work doing it that way. There are easier ways of doing it, and perhaps you know, in this in light of what's happened over the last year, we will certainly be adapting how we do that.
Yeah, sure. I think you're right. Obviously, the benefits of training someone up is that I guess it's a blank book to start off with, and you can instill in them your principles and what you need them to do. But obviously, that takes time, and you don't always have the time to do that, and it might not always work out, I guess.
And it also requires tolerance. And that's something that is, if there's one reason why that's not a good way to run your business, is the lack of tolerance in our industry for people to make mistakes these days is pretty low. And that's a hard place for a third party to be in, to enable people to learn by mistake, which is ultimately what most ops people do. If you ask most people how we learn our trade, it's off the back of a fairly plentiful supply of mistakes.
Yeah, and they're probably not mistakes, are they? They're just trying different things.
Some of them are mistakes.
I'm trying to be nice. No, well, I mean, what I'm saying is you have to and I've seen many videos of yourself talking about the need to adapt and to change consistently, and actually this period is a good opportunity to do that. I guess what I'm saying is, and having seen how operations teams work, and it's easy because I've been on the more commercial side, it does seem like a thankless task sometimes, because they do try things that might not always work, and sometimes they might be sort of pillared for that. But so obviously consumer shows, trade shows. What about international?
Yes. At some points, up to about 50% of our business has been international.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we did the China stuff with Media 10 on the design side of things.
Okay.
We have a couple of shows that rotate around Europe. I think 3 shows that fall into a different European city every year.
Yeah.
We've got one that's in Amsterdam. So a pretty diverse set.
Right.
And I think that's where an outside ops team gets a lot of experience, because we are not constrained by the format of events that a company might run. We're quite adaptable.
And I've had on this channel a few people from America, and also people from here that have tried to launch in America and in Europe. Some successful, some not. I guess if you are managing an event internationally, what are the key sort of components of doing that successfully? Is it boots on the ground, sort of having partners over there that you can trust?
It's a real mix, actually, and it kind of depends on what the organizer wants to create. So say, for example, we kind of take Media 10 with Design Shanghai. They wanted to not only put in a design show into Shanghai, but they wanted it to be the best design show. Look at Media 10 events. It needed to be done an international way. And obviously when you put sometimes when you go to a different country, their understanding of what the minimum requirement is different. So our job there was to almost like quality control it. It's boots on the ground, because you have to have a team of some kind over in country, whether that's your contractor or your venue or a third party over there, to make the communications work through, to make sure that apples are apples and pears are pears, that side of things. But then the idea of kind of an international customer service experience and international look and feel to the event is something that we were very much part of being and doing.
And obviously you can bring that experience to bear back in the UK as well for your clients, which is great. I know that's just a sort of short summary of the business, but obviously I need to move on to other things. But I do obviously want to say congratulations, because I believe that one of your team was made one of the 30 under 30 recently. Was that right?
Yeah, Tabs was, which is great, really good. She was totally deserved. I mean, Tabs is one of our ops managers. One of a set of her shows is the ones that rotate around Europe. So she has a new set of operational challenges every time one of those goes out to a different country. So she's highly adaptable and so deserving of the 30 under 30.
Fantastic. Was that the first time from your company, or was that been?
No, we had a lady called Penny Law, who's now Penny Moyes. She was our first 30 under 30. Fantastic.
Congratulations to them. Have to move on to the pandemic, which I wish we weren't talking about it, but I guess we have to. You're a business owner. March the 23rd comes. What are you thinking?
What day of the week is it? I mean, again, as a business owner, purely as a business owner, we were talking about this the other day. Obviously last week we got news that the furlough is being extended, and your automatic reaction is, Oh, thank God. The secondary reaction to that is, oh God, I've got to go and rework the whole thing all over again. I mean, what business owner right now doesn't know their forward look, forecasting, cash flow, everything within an inch of their lives? I hardly need to look at the spreadsheet anymore to rework all of that in my mind. But every change, whether even if it's a positive change, comes a whole reworking of a business structure. And we're quite a small business, so I can only imagine what the Relexes and the Clarions of the world have to do every time an announcement comes through.
Sure.
In terms of next year, we've got a pretty large event next year in the calendar. So our main focus next year is making sure that happens.
And can I ask what month that is?
September.
Okay, so because it's interesting, I some organisers have got events back in the Q1, others back in the Q2, obviously backloaded towards the end of the year. People don't have a crystal ball, but your view is, do you have a view, in your opinion, when those types of shows are going to come back? I know it's a difficult question to answer.
It totally depends on mass testing and vaccine. I mean, those are obviously the game changers.
Sure.
That will flip all of this on its head. And that doesn't mean to say that if and hopefully when those things happen over the next few months, that we then don't have another set of problems we need to tackle, as in reigniting the supply chain, reigniting the exhibitor confidence, in time to catch up with that. Almost what would we do if it came out that actually, do you know what? Actually, it's February. We go, oh God.
That's actually a really good point. It's like no one's thought it's going to be sooner. All of a sudden, actually, you can't. You've been beating the drum for so long. I've done a good job. Start again in February.
All now preconditioned to pain, to painful announcements. Yeah.
You talk about the supply chain, and it'd be really interesting for me to understand the impact on them, because again, I've seen some videos. Obviously, spring, a whole season, I guess, went uninvoiced. People, a lot of freelancers, which either didn't qualify for furlough or slipped through various gaps. What was your view of what was happening then?
I think, like you say, it's multi-layered. I think the unseen problem that the industry perhaps doesn't see, unless you're in the kind of operational sphere and your LinkedIn is full of operational and freelance people, is the freelance sector obviously are decimated. And something that Simon Garrett has been championing recently, which is so needed, is the fact that our industry does rely on the freelance community, and that freelance community have not had anything and have also gone and found easier jobs. So when we're looking at reigniting the industry, not only do we need to find the magic switch that switches all of those people back into wanting to come into our environments, we also need to look at what those environments are and what are the working conditions. Because, to be frank, as somebody who regularly can't find a toilet open in a venue during the build and break phase, these people are now working in environments where that's not even an issue. So I think there's multi-layers in there. In terms of the supply chain overall, we've got that mixture of self-employed, freelancers. We've got SMEs. We've got some massive companies in there with massive overheads. We don't know what the shape of the future is there. We do know that we've got passionate people. There will be still passionate people that care about what they do and how they do it. There will be people that that are positioned well. I was going to say take advantage, but that sounds really negative in this time, and it's not. There will be people in there with pots of cash that will be used for reigniting businesses, industry. So it's all to watch for, really. In terms of the heartbreaking side of things, there are people that don't have enough money for their food at the end of the week.
which is, I mean, that's a societal issue, never mind, you know, where we're at the moment. Because, yeah, I guess there's a bank of freelancers that are not overly well paid. So are you worried that we're at risk of losing not to be overly sensationalist, a risk of losing a generation in that respect of people that either haven't got into the industry, but were on the cusp of joining it, let's say in February, and were in the industry, but now have moved on?
Yeah, and I think that goes across the board as well. You'll find, I think we will be surprised, but we'll find companies maybe where the directors are of an older generation, who look at how hard it has been to run a business and will be to run a business, and we'll just kind of go, do you know what, should we throw in the towel now, because we don't have the energy to keep going at this sustained pace that we're going to need to operate at. I think everybody, you know, I myself included, which you probably don't want to hear, but you go, is this really worth it? I've invested 25 years of my life drafting for something that I love and that I'm passionate about, that actually I thought was really necessary, but somehow the world's still turning, and 8 months on, we've not run an event.
Yeah. And it's for no fault of anyone, you know, they're viable businesses, viable people, and this is, you know, no fault of their own that they've been in this position. Moving on to the industry bodies that you're associated with, and just generally in the events and exhibition industry, obviously ESSA, EIA, AEO, AEV. I've spoken to lots of people over the last few weeks. There's frustrations. There's obviously lots of positives. What's your view of how the industry bodies have sort of reacted during this period?
I think I kind of go back to the ESSA strategy day 2 years ago. So every 2 years, ESSA has a strategy day with its board directors. 2 years ago, we were looking at where we thought ESSA needed to up the game. And COVID planning and crisis management was not on the list at all. So if we go from that point to where things are at now, and you look at how organizations have adapted and been agile to the situation that we're in, I think I know that the people that within those organizations have worked tirelessly and done their very best and done their utmost, and by having the 3 associations under the EIA has enabled us as a collective of 3 to split the work out and tackle things. Each of the associations obviously got a different set of membership. I can only really speak for ESSA, but our membership is the largest of the 3 memberships. So we're around about 250 members, and every one of those has a different set of issues, cash flow and everything. So Andrew has been particularly good in just getting out face to face on Zoom, having Zoom catch-ups pretty much every week or every other week with members to understand what they need of the association, and then has gone on to try and find a way to deliver that. So at first, the first few weeks, I remember them vividly, because Andrew is like, you know, people are calling me and asking me how they're going to survive. You know, and as an association, that's a question that's never been asked of the association before. So I think I'm rambling a bit there, but I would say when this all comes out in the wash, the associations clearly, in the same way you look at the government, could the government have done anything better? Yes, we could all do things better. We're in a global pandemic that's never happened in our lifetime before. So have we done everything we can? Yes, I think we have. Could we do something differently next time? Yes, I definitely think we could. And we'll take the lessons, and we'll make the next iteration of a global pandemic absolutely stonking.
Well, I guess also that the one positive to come out of it, and obviously you were close to your community before, but clearly you're closer. Also, people like myself have now got an appreciation of what ESSA did. I'll be completely honest with you. I was ignorant of it as a commercial part of the show organizer. You know, you sort of think that's ops and they do their thing. but obviously now having a much more of appreciation, you've got such a wide range of services under your umbrella. So in some respects, even harder job in the AEO, because it's more sort of broader events and exhibitions where you've got so many services that you have to represent. In terms of lobbying of the government, how involved have ESSA been within that?
So within the EIA, the way that the EIA is currently formed, each of the associations kind of focuses on one thing. So the AEV has traditionally focused on research, and the AEO has focused on government, and ESSA has focused on health and safety. So that's why Chris's name is on so much in terms of government, is that within the EIA, but within the 3 associations, Chris Skeeth from the AEO is the leader of that situation. There's been a lot of close work done with public affairs organisations within the membership. And I think probably the hardest thing for Chris and the associations is a lot of those conversations you can't even talk about. But the updates, and probably where the wider industry, if you're not a member of the association, you don't see what's going on, because obviously they send their updates to the members, the people that are paying for them to be employed and things. So all the meetings are around DCMS and BIS and CIT and the various different government functions have been going. It has been a hard graft.
No, I had Chris on last week, you're probably aware, and I definitely had a greater appreciation after that for what he and what you guys have done sort of in the background. And obviously he said that, you know, the likes of the hospitality industry have got 7 full-time lobbyists or something, and they always have. So to sort of, you know, start from that position, you've done a tremendous job to get to where you've got to. And obviously going forward, that can only benefit. You've now, you know, got even more solid ties with local and central government.
Yeah. And actually, you know, the things like that cost money. And clearly, event associations are going to be losing money because members will not be in business. And so at the point where we actually need more money for lobbying, for that kind of, you know, what you just said about the hospitality, we've actually got less money to do with it. So we need to box more clever. You know, we need to box really clever going forward. Use this as the basis of all the lessons that have been learned over the last 8 months, and now, you know, once this is all over, look to the future and what we need to do differently.
Sure. Just moving on to your role at ESSA, and obviously vice chair and then chair in January, I believe. What motivates you to take on that position at this time? And just, I know it's, well, if you haven't got too much time, but in terms of briefly, what are your main priorities going to be in those first 100 days, as everyone talks about?
Well, I mean, obviously, when I stuck my hand up for vice chair, which was two odd years ago, didn't know what was coming. But well, it's a great time for ops to take the chair, isn't it? Because this is what we're good at. Right, what's the problem? How are we going to fix it? So my goal with both the chair of the EIA role, which I've got for a year, and the chair of ESSA, which I've got for 2 years, is to ensure that the function of the board is such that we are effective and dynamic and can make a difference. Because I personally cannot champion every individual thing that ESSA wants to achieve. But in the strategy day, we've kind of highlighted some key areas, and my job is to ensure that the board is well fitted out to tackle each of those. So it's a case of delegating to the right people, and we've got some amazing people on the board, and every April there's an AGM where new board directors can be voted in. So like looking at things like membership engagement, like how are we delivering this? Where do we sit within the industry? Could we make the industry better? Can we make sure toilets are open? those kind of things. Yeah, so that's my role, to make sure that those boards are operating really effectively for the environment that we're in.
Sure. The community has obviously come together. That phrase is used a lot over the last few months. What has made you most proud, I guess, as part of all the initiatives that have happened and the way that sort of people have started to collaborate?
I think one thing that has happened that I'm personally most proud of is so we did Ops in lockdown, and then which launched into the OpsNest, which is an operational membership community, and anybody who has lost their income through whatever means, whether that's freelance or redundancy or whatever, who wants to be an active part of that operational community, can just ping me a message, say why they want to be involved, and more. Every time, to be frank, I've offered a free membership for at least a few months, and then if it's for them and they've still got no work, then we'll extend it. So there's a large portion of that community, I'd say probably about a quarter of that community, that are gifted. In many ways, gifted the thing, and also really gifted.
And how many members are you up to at the moment? I know you've stopped membership at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, so we're up to 65. We're taking between now and Christmas to make sure that the model's right. Sure. And those 65 are our guinea pigs, and bless them. They're watching me make mistakes left, right, and centre. But so coming back to what I'm most proud of is the number of those people who've had gifted places, who have of their own back messaged me to say, I've got something now, I want to start paying for my membership, but can I also gift 3 months to somebody else?
Fantastic.
And I'm proud not only of the format that we've enabled that to happen, but of the goodwill of individuals within our industry to look outside of themselves.
Fantastic. And I want to talk about Eventwell specifically, and obviously your role and Helen's as well. Could you just bring that to life, and then we'll talk more specifically about the campaigns, so where it came from and what it's trying to achieve? So
a few years ago, a freelancer who we worked with got cancer, and this is a bit of a long story. Anyway, she got cancer and she relied on day rate work. So a few of us got together and basically combined our knowledge and our skills to figure out who could cover what work she had in her books, in case she needed backup. So if chemo was tough and she wasn't able to put that day's work in, who could she call on? Who could we coordinate to do that day's work for her so she could still get the money? Now, as it happened, she stormed through her cancer like as if it was just something to be batted aside. I mean, she raged through it, and she didn't need to call on it. But that idea that our freelance community, if they are unable to work, they don't get paid, has been not just a COVID thing. That is a problem we have in our industry. So it's always been something that I wanted to get into place, a point where people can offer something, whatever they have, whether that's time in lieu or money or a skill or something, to people that need it, because that's a good thing to do. This whole situation obviously exacerbated that situation hugely. So I was looking around for somebody who could take this on, because I can't do everything myself.
You're quite busy.
And I'd been doing a few bits with Helen and talking to her, and she obviously runs Eventwell, which handles a lot of the mental health side of things. But she's saying this is a great opportunity to provide a different form of mental health support, i.e., we are an industry that you should be able to call on to support you on every level, not just mental health. But if, for example, you don't have enough money to buy your son or daughter a birthday present or a Christmas present, that's a massive mental health trigger. It makes you feel a lot of things, and therefore the ongoing impact is hugely mental. And Helen, being who Helen is, within 2 days cracked open a website, got our first pledges. Within, I think, 3 weeks, she launched into America. Yeah, so that's the fundamental idea, is anybody who has anything, whether it's time or financial, or anything, can pledge something to Eventwell, and anybody who needs that can just accept it anonymously.
Sure. And I guess you could do with obviously pledges from corporates, right, financially.
Yes.
What's your message to them?
Message to them is that, you know, I have spoken to a few corporates that said, oh, the optics aren't great in terms of, you know, we're making people redundant. How can we give money to charity? I'm like, but the people you've been making redundant are pledging.
Yeah.
So actually, the optics really should be, we're all having to make redundancies. Sure. I've had to make redundancies. But our corporate social responsibility still needs to hold firm. And for the sheer volume of people in our industry that have been made redundant, we're relying on our corporates to come to the table with something more than 25 quid. Yeah. To be frank.
Yeah. And you've got a Christmas, there's a new sort of Christmas, not appeal, but a Christmas initiative.
Yeah, it's an appeal, a beg, whatever you call it.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so again, coming back to mental health side, there are a lot of triggers around Christmas. You know, everybody's looking towards Christmas going, I wonder what it's going to be like this time. It's very different. But imagine what it's going to be like if you can't have your close, nearest and dearest around you, and you also don't have a turkey in the oven, or you don't have enough money for your kid for Christmas. And actually, I think our industry, everybody in our industry deserves that little bit of backup. That actually, for all the late nights that you've worked on site, for the fingernails that you've lost from picking up carpet tape off the floor of a venue, for the lost hours that you've not been around for birthdays and family engagements, really the industry should, at the very minimum, be able to ensure that whoever needs a Christmas dinner and a gift has one. So you're right, it's an appeal, it's a beg. There's some Christmas packages on there, a family of 2, family of 3, family of 4, a Christmas grocery shop. So yes, if any of your listeners have got anything in their pocket that they can give to make that a thing, then please do. And also any listeners who need that, it's anonymous. There's no there is a stigma around a wrong stigma around accepting help, but just take it that it's a bit of overtime, basically.
Sure. And how do they just go to the Eventwell website?
Okay. You either click you want to pledge, or you want to accept a pledge.
Okay, it's a fantastic initiative, and I personally encourage everyone to get involved, and I'll beat that drum. Briefly, ops teams of the future, event managers of the future, they've had to pivot, excuse the word, to virtual. When I was at Closer Still over the summer, the ops teams obviously had to start upskill on all the different platforms, etc. How do you think their role is going to change, just briefly, going forward?
I don't know. You don't want to hear that, do you?
Right, move on. Do you for example, do you still see them getting more involved in like the virtual event delivery, or do you think that'll be another team? Or
I mean, ops managers are pretty agile anyway, and that's our job. And obviously the digital revolution is charging through our life, not just our industry. And I think ops managers of the future that will be more attuned to success will be those that understand how to integrate that into the physical. I think it's going to be interesting because there's been a move within shows towards content, in terms of educational content being a real driver to an event. and sometimes at the detriment of that. When I first started in the industry all those years ago, it was more about networking and serendipitous conversations. We've moved more away from that because the kind of expense accounts that used to make that a thing kind of went away. Educational content became more important, and now it's going to be interesting how ops managers design their events going forward as to how much we get that serendipitous element back in, and how we enable that to happen.
Yeah, because again, I was going to talk to you very briefly about obviously events of the future as well. Again, I've heard you talk about the pilot event that happened and sort of ambient noise and all that sort of stuff. But I guess we're still learning about that.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing. The ops managers for events in 6 months' time have no practice runs really. In the OpsNest, we've got a session that you're going to be on about the future of the industry in December. And Andrew Evans, who ran a couple of events over the summer, is going to be joining us on that one. We're going to be talking about that agility and adaptation. And actually, the visitors at his event were quite happy that there was a glass of champagne over there and a bento box of food over there. In 6 months' time, will our audiences be as forgiving as the time that they would have been when we've not been able to run events?
Sure, because they've obviously used to going to restaurants and other places as well already where they're sort of used to doing it. I know we're covering a lot and we're racing through it, but diversity in the industry. I sit here as a white sort of middle-aged, I guess middle-class man, so I haven't experienced too much discrimination, if I'm honest. Talk to me about diverse. Sorry. Still time. Actually, maybe, I mean, well, age is a separate thing, actually, funnily enough, because even at 46, I feel like I'm sort of on the scrap heap in certain respects. Talk to me about sort of gender equality, diversity, racial equality.
It's been interesting. I've listened to a few of your previous interviews, and it's been interesting how I found it particularly interesting. Peter Jones was saying, well, it's up to the associations, and Chris Keith was saying it's up to our members. I'll come at these on two, because they're two very different points. Overriding is diversity and diversity of thought. I certainly feel that our industry is lacking in diverse thinking that comes from people of different backgrounds, races, gender, even from poorer parts of our society to middle class to funded people. There's so much in there. If you look at the constraints or the constructs of our industry that welcome interns into our equation who are unpaid, the only reason that can happen is because mummy and daddy are paying for them to live while they're working for free in the event industry. That construct rules out diversity. It puts in place a barrier for people that can't afford to work for free for somebody. So if we're looking at, that's more on the diversity side, not gender, but if we're looking at the things that happen in our industry that prevent people coming into it, we are an industry where if you graft, you come in, you graft, you work really hard, and you will probably get somewhere if you keep in it. But the problem is we're not open at that point of entry. We're not enabling a diverse set of people to join our industry in the first place. If we're looking at the boards, for example, of ESSA, there is no one from the BAME sector community in there at all. And it's something that we look at. That the problem with the board is the end result of decades of restrictive industry. So somebody can't just come into the industry and go on the board. They need to have been there for years to be there, to work up the experience and the position within the business. So it's a real problem.
So how do we change it? What do we do?
Says it's not their problem, is part of the problem. It is absolutely everybody's problem.
Yeah.
How do we change it? I mean, I think Ashanti and the Diversity Ally podcasts and things that have been going on, and if you haven't been getting onto those, I think that's a great start. She's a great start in terms of finding more information. It's an extension of your personal belief system and your own personal construct. So I think it has to start in the individual for everybody to understand that one way of thinking is not beneficial for the whole industry. We need diverse thinking, and we need to open our minds up as to what constructs we already have in place that prevent other people coming in. So as a prime example, this isn't about BAME diversity, it's about gender diversity. Obviously, I'm the chair of ESSA, and ESSA have a golf day. Well, I'm a single mum, so there is fat chance of me spending 6 hours on a golf course. And that is a preventative, that's a barrier for my success. However, it's a really important part of the ESSA membership for so many of the members. But they would never see that as being something that is totally inaccessible for me as a single mother in the event industry, because they can spend 6 hours on a golf course. I can't.
That's a good point. It's about understanding what you're doing, who can be part of it. If they can't be part of that, is there something else they could be a part of? Because you're not going to find one thing that everyone can be a part of, but you need to have a mixture, right, of things that they feel that they're inclusive. I mean, it's an ongoing discussion, and we're sitting here in 2020 and we're still having this discussion in many industries. Only yesterday, the chairman of the FA had to resign, given his slip up of words. And I do feel, and I've actually got Ashanti on tomorrow, I'm speaking to her.
Brilliant.
I think part of it, and I'm going to say this from my perspective, is we might have gone too far in the fact that people are now even afraid to discuss it because they might say the wrong thing, which actually happened yesterday, as I said, with the chairman of the FA. If you believe what he said and why he said it, or his reasons. So it's almost like, and when I have conversations with people, and I mention BAME and I mention the word black, under their breath, and like people don't know what. Especially when it's and that's why I want to genuinely ask Ashanti, how do you start the conversation if you're a white,
and I think I mean, obviously Ashanti is the industry person in our industry right now, and that's brilliant that we have an organization there that can challenge us and also guide through. As a mum of a mixed race child, I have had to have my own journey with my own racism, because people kind of would assume that maybe I'm not, but there are constructs in our society that are so heavily ingrained that you don't even understand your privilege. I don't understand even now. My son is going to be 14 at the end of this week. I still don't understand some of the privileges that I have that he does not have, and he's my son. And so anybody, I don't know what the right or wrong thing to say is. I'm from Yorkshire and I'm short. I'm a little terrier, and I usually say the wrong thing anyway. So I just need to be comfortable in the fact that I make mistakes all the time, and humble enough to know that I make mistakes and I will learn from them. And I think, if you were to come to me and say something that I found difficult, that it's my duty to say to you, I find that really awkward. We as English British people need to find our way of going, how do we get through that bit so that you can understand where I'm coming from and you can
because everywhere's from somewhere, right? I'm Jewish, my dad's Moroccan, and we've all been affected by different things that get thrown around the workplace. So that we can go for hours and talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. If I were to want something to come out of this little bit of our conversation for anybody going forward, is that understanding that there are constructs that exist in our industry and in our society that up until a period of enlightenment, you won't have done much about. But when you're enlightened about it, that's the time when you need to start unpicking what those are, and modifying how your belief system, or how you adapt that into our industry, and start with the smallest of things and then work up from there.
Yeah, thank you. Finally, and I tend to ask most people this, if you don't mind answering my desert island question. If you're going to be stranded on a desert island, what two people from the industry would you want with you?
From the industry?
Yeah.
Oh God, I was hoping for like at least get Nina Simone on there or something. Who would I like?
Yeah.
I would like Jane Risby.
Okay.
Because she's always been an inspiration to me. I feel like I'm kind of treading very far behind her, kind of, but on a track that she has trodden, so it makes it easier. And I would say, it's got to be a contractor, because then we can build stuff.
There you go.
I would say Kieran Hughes, even though Jenna, his girlfriend, would kill me. Actually, she might want a bit of a break from him.
Well, there you go. It could only be for a day.
Kieran Hughes from Dackless Woodworks, because his humour is exceptional, and he can make stuff. Perfect.
Thank you, Lou Kiwanuka. Thank you so much for your time today. You've covered a lot of topics, and I look forward to seeing you again on the 1st.
Yes, look forward to seeing you there. It's open. It's a free session, so I'll send you a link.